Welcome to the Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to part 3 of our first mock draft. I'm your host, Jim Sella, here with Jay Dash.
Not the third half.
Not the third half, just the third part, or maybe the third round. It all depends on what I want to call it whenever we start it.
Believe it.
We got picks 21 through 32. Detroit's got pick 21. They had a good season at the beginning of the year and then kind of tailed off, especially after Matt Stafford hurt his finger. So they really need to ramp it up this year if they want to compete. And, I mean, let's face it, in that division, all they really got to do is beat Green Bay.
Yeah, they tailed off drastically last year. And actually, a few years ago, this was a team known for their defense. They really never got it going with Matt Stafford and Kelvin Johnson out there. Kelvin Johnson retires. The offense actually took a step forward last year, looked pretty good. And not that the defense was bad or anything, but I think right now you do want to add to that defense. And I see here you do have their team needs at cornerback, linebacker, and edge pass rusher.
Yeah, they did sign DJ Hayden, Jordan Hill, Akeem Spence, and Paul Worlo. I can't even say this dude's last name. He's a middle linebacker. They signed all them in the offseason. They also re-signed their long snapper. I guess that doesn't help the defense too much. But they still need help on defense because a lot of these guys that they brought in are more guys who are going to just kind of contribute, not necessarily be stars. DJ Hayden has a chance at playing really well for him.
Well, if the long snapper's good, that'll help the punter and that'll help the defense.
Please believe. But Detroit can use a guy who can get to the passer. When they had Ndamukong Suh, they had Nick Fairley, they had somebody else. I mean, they had a beast defensive line for a while. And like you said, defense was kind of their specialty for like a 2-3 year period. But last year it tailed off. I like Derek Barnett, the defensive end out of Tennessee. He's 6'3", 259 pounds, runs a 4.88 40. He's a guy you can get to the quarterback quickly. Detroit plays in a division where you need to rush the passer to be able to win. Basically, you got to be able to beat Green Bay, and you got to get to Aaron Rodgers to be able to do it. So Barnett's definitely a guy who can contribute on third down and maybe even work his way into an everyday player by the end of the year, probably for sure by his second year. I think Haloti Ngata came back to Detroit, didn't he, for one more year?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, they got him there. He's huge, but he's only going to last so many more years. The guy's so old. So Barnett's a guy, he's not going to fill not a spot. I'm not saying he's going to go in and play nose tackle or anything, but he's a guy that can definitely be a rotational guy on the D-line from day one and help this defense out and help get to Aaron Rodgers. I guess they can try to beat Sam Bradford and the Vikings too, but they always implode, so who really cares about them?
Yeah, I could see Detroit taking that division next year. You still got to get through Green Bay, though.
Believe it.
Next on the clock is the Miami Dolphins. They got off to a horrible start last season. I think they were 1-4, maybe something like that. And then they went into Pittsburgh and handled them and really turned their season around with Tannehill. Everybody was saying Tannehill needs to go, Tannehill needs to go. And then they flipped the switch and started winning football games, and all that talk went away. Finally, Tannehill went down late in the season. They brought in Matt Moore, and he played pretty well at the end of the season to get him into the playoffs, but he's not a starting quarterback. He's not someone that can win in the playoffs. But if Tannehill comes back, I do like that offense out there. Jay Ajayi had a huge season. I don't think he's one of the best running backs in the league necessarily, but he had a very nice season last year, and there's some upside there. I like the receivers they got out there. I like what they're doing offensively. They do need a little bit of help on the line, but I think what they want to do is look at defensively, especially linebacker.
Yeah, they did bring in Lawrence Timmons. We're very familiar with Timmons. He played middle linebacker for the Steelers for a long time. He was a great player for Pittsburgh. They gave him more guaranteed money than Pittsburgh was going to give him. So Timmons did what was best for him, and good for him. He goes in. He's going to be a day one starter. He might not have been the starter even if he stayed here, or at least an every down player if he stayed here in Pittsburgh. The Dolphins also signed safety Nate Allen, so that'll help on the back end a little bit. Allen's not quite as old as Timmons, but both guys are a little bit older. So these guys, they're short-term fixes, but like you said, they still need help on that defensive side. They need long-term help. I think the linebacker Gerard Davis out of Florida helps Miami tremendously here at 22. They limped into the playoffs, very injured offensive line, Tannehill injured, so you really can't go by what you've seen in that wild card game when Pittsburgh smoked them. They really need to improve their run defense, and they gave up 23.8 points per game last year, about middle of the pack in the NFL. Their offense isn't great enough to give up that many points. Miami's offense is only going to score around 24, 25 points a game, so you really want to see that number somewhere around 19 or 20, and Miami thinks that they can get there this year, and Davis really helps them fit that mold.
All right, let's move on to number 23 then. That is the New York Giants. They had a pretty solid season last year. Before the season, I predicted them to win the division. Now, the Dallas Cowboys obviously came out with their 2 rookies and dominated last season, but the New York Giants looked pretty good last year. Eli's getting a little bit old. It would be nice to give him a running back, really. He's never really... I mean, it's been a long time since he had a beast running back behind him out there. He does have the receivers. But there's a couple guys I like in their secondary as well, a couple young guys out there. But they do need help in their front 7 on the defensive side.
Well, they did give him a beast running back, man. You didn't hear? They signed Sean Drawn.
Sean Drawn.
Please believe. Well, they signed Geno Smith, too. Maybe they can just make him a running back since he can't throw.
Yeah, dead wrong.
The only good offensive free agent they brought in was Brandon Marshall. I shouldn't say the only good because they also brought in guard DJ Fluker, so that'll help Eli stand up a little bit. Brandon Marshall's expected to play opposite of Odell Beckham, so that'll give him a good 1-2 punch there.
Sterling Shepard as a number 3 is pretty beast, too.
Yeah, please believe. They did lose nobody really, I guess, of any significance. Robbie Gould would be the best one. They signed him, I think, mid-season last year, so they'll probably look to just draft somebody.
I don't even remember him playing for them.
Late rounds. Yeah, they had that kicker that got charged with domestic abuse or whatever from like 3 years ago, and then it just came up, so then they cut him, and he cried like a little girl on Twitter, and then they had to sign Robbie Gould. But I think, just like you said, they do need a running back, but honestly, I think you can find a good running back here in 2nd or 3rd round. Maybe they trade back into the 1st round, but I doubt it. I don't think it's really the values there because there's a lot of good late round running backs. So I think defense is really where the Giants want to go. Their defense got better last year as they went into the playoffs, but you can never have too much pressure on the quarterback, quite honestly. You get pressure on the quarterback, that helps out the secondary. The secondary got better as the year went on. Who'd they sign? They signed a free agent corner last year before. He was from the Rams, Janoris Jenkins. They signed him. So in his 2nd year, he'll take another step up in the defense, knowing what's going on. But if you really get to the passer, that's going to help out the best way. I think Malik McDowell, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, he offers that. 6'6", 290 pounds. He still runs a 4.85 40 with 23 bench reps. He's a big, strong guy. They call him slippery, so I guess that means he knows how to squeeze through the blockers. Like kind of opposite of what Jerome Bettis did as a running back. He was huge, but he kind of turned sideways and snuck through the hole. Well, that's kind of what this guy does. He just kind of turns his body a little bit, slides right between the guard and the tackle, and off he goes towards the quarterback. That's something that really fits the mold of the Giants. They signed Jason Pierre-Paul long-term, I think 4 years. If you can get somebody in there or rotate around like they did the years that they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, that's what made them really successful. Rush the passer with 4 guys, drop the other 7 in coverage. You only have a few more years left in Eli. Other than running back, I don't think they need much on offense, so I think McDowell fits here on defense.
All right, let's move on to number 24 here, and that is the Oakland Raiders. They had a great season offensively last year until Derek Carr went down, obviously, and that ruined their season. Now, defensively, they started out horrible, and everybody was saying, that was their downfall. But really, late in the season, they started to pick it up a little bit and play some good defense as well. Unfortunately, like I said, Carr went down, so that ruined their chances. And they lost Latavius Murray. I think he went to the Vikings this offseason, correct?
Yeah.
So he's gone. They're going to have to replace him. Latavius Murray's the real deal at running back, obviously. But even though their defense did get better late in the season, I still think that's what you want to focus on here. I really like what they got going offensively. Obviously, you want to replace that running back. But I think their focus should be defensively as well, right?
Believe it. Listen, they lost safety Nate Allen, linebacker Darren Bates, cornerback DJ Hayden, defensive tackle Stacy McGee, and outside linebacker Malcolm Smith, all to free agency. And their defense already wasn't that good. These guys are decent players. Nate Allen, DJ Hayden, Darren Bates, they're not I guess perennial Pro Bowlers. They might make a Pro Bowl here or there, but these are guys who are good football players, and they're going to need to replace them. And they need that defense to play better. The offense is there now, as long as Derek Carr is ready to play again. So this is Oakland's window. And I'm not saying, Carr is old and he's only going to play another 2 years or whatever. But still, you want to do it when he's in his prime. The Steelers did their best when Ben was in his prime. The Giants did their best when Eli was in his prime. Somehow the Patriots just keep winning with Brady, which makes everybody sick. But you generally win Super Bowls with quarterbacks before they turn 30. And not too many of them win after they turn 30. So they're ready to do it with Derek Carr right now. I think Marlon Humphrey, the cornerback out of Alabama, gives them the best chance to do it here at 24. Like we said, they just lost a crap ton of free agent defensive players. The offense is ready. The defense needs to be ready. Listen, Marlon Humphrey, he's no slack defender. And I know people keep saying there's a lot of value in the cornerback position deep in this draft. There is, but this guy's 6 foot, 197 pounds, and he's running a 4.4 140. He'll put on a little bit of weight as he goes through, as he gets bigger and stronger in the NFL. So in his prime, he's probably going to play somewhere around 6 foot, 210, at a 4.4 140. I mean, that's beast for a cornerback. He's got long arms at 32 inches. I mean, this is the prototypical guy you want to see at that position, covering these big, tall, fast wide receivers.
If they can bring a shutdown corner out there, they're going to take the next step, man, for sure.
Believe it.
All right, let's move on to the Houston Texans at number 25. And even without J.J. Watt last season, this defense was one of the best in the league. Everybody was saying they were still the best defense. If you ask me, I think the New England Patriots were the best defense in the NFL last season. But when it came to yards allowed, it was the Houston Texans. Getting J.J. Watt back is going to be a huge addition, obviously. But you look on the offensive side, man, they did nothing with Brock Osweiler, got rid of him. He's out in Cleveland now. I don't even know what they're going to do with him. But Houston's offense is a mess right now. DeAndre Hopkins went into the season last year as one of the top 3 receivers on a lot of people's list, and with no quarterback out there, they couldn't get him the ball. They brought in that Will Fuller out there offensively as well, a young guy that started off hot, cooled down a little bit, but it looks like they got some receivers out there. But outside of that, they got a lot of work to do offensively, and defensively, they could use an inside linebacker as well.
Yeah, Houston really struck out on Brock Osweiler, and they got away with it by dumping him on Cleveland's payroll. So that was pretty smart by Houston. They had to surrender a second-round pick, but they feel that it's worth it. It's next year's second-round pick, not this year's. So they feel that it's worth it to get out from underneath that huge contract. They really should be in the market for a quarterback. However, I don't think there's one they like here at number 25. They can look to bolster their offensive line and help that running game that was already strong last year, finishing 8th in the league in rushing yards. The best way to help young QB, if they do draft one later, or Tom Savage, who they have right now, the best way to help them is to run the football. I mean, that's just football 101. I think Cam Robinson helps him here at offensive tackle from Alabama. He's huge at 6'6", 322 pounds. He can bolster that running game right away, maybe move up from 8th to 1st even, and obviously help whoever the quarterback is back there in the passing game. You have a young quarterback who struggles to read the field, maybe takes an extra second or two. What do you got to do? You got to protect them. A lot of teams that win in the NFL, look at the Patriots and the Packers and the Steelers. I mean, these teams build up their offensive and defensive line. The way to win in the NFL is still to control the line of scrimmage, and Robinson gives them a huge advantage. I mean, this guy is a beast.
Houston Texans going to miss the playoffs this coming season?
Yeah, probably. They just don't have a quarterback.
I agree, but they didn't have one last year either, and they made the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess it guess depends on what are the Colts going to do, because obviously they have the best quarterback in that division. They just can't seem to put the rest of the team around them in the right pieces. So if they can get it together, then
I'm just making an argument for Mariota as the best quarterback in that division.
You think Mariota's better than Luck?
Just based on last season. I mean, I think Luck has more upside, but right now Mariota looks like the guy out there.
I mean, maybe if you just compare their last seasons, but the seasons that Luck
Actually,
put on the books early in his career blow
actually, since
anything that
Mariota
Mariota
came
did
in
out
the
of the
league,
water.
right? It hasn't Luck been bad for 2 seasons, pretty much now.
Yeah, he's been beat up for 2 seasons
Well, right,
too.
right. But yeah, since Mariota's come in the league, man, Mariota's been the more productive quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, but Luck has success before Mariota even got here.
Absolutely. But does that mean Terry Bradshaw's still a better quarterback than Mariota?
Yeah,
You're dead wrong.
of course Terry Bradshaw's a better
He
quarterback than Mariota.
he
He has
was a better
4 Super
quarterback,
Bowls.
but I mean, if he played right now,
Well, I'm not going to come. You can't compare. You can't move players in generations because if you
But
take
but
most
that's what
of
I'm
today's
saying.
players and put
I
them
get
in
what
the
you're saying, but
70s,
Andrew Luck,
they'd
I
get
mean,
hammered.
Andrew Luck was better than Mariota, is what I'm trying to say. Right now, he's not been better than Mariota.
He maybe hasn't played better because of the injuries, but I still think he's physically better. His talent's still better.
Yeah, more talented. I agree with you on that. Let's move on to the Seattle Seahawks here at number 26.
Nobody cares about the Seahawks.
Their offensive line was beat last season. Russell Wilson had some trouble out there. Now they did bring in Eddie Lacy to play running back. I think he can succeed out there if he's able to stay healthy. But Seattle, they need help on their offensive line, obviously, and they could bring in D tackle as well and someone in the secondary alongside Sherman there.
Oh, and I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Raiders, they're trying to talk Marshawn Lynch out of retirement.
I did see that, yes.
Seattle reminded me of it. Seattle still owns his rights, so they would have to release him or ask the Raiders for compensation. Yeah, Seattle's O-line was terrible last year. Wilson got pounded into the ground, so he struggled a little bit. I mean, the stats were still there for him. He came back and played strong as the year went on, and he got healthier. But at the beginning of the year, I mean, this guy was just getting pounded into the ground. So Seattle needs to do something. I mean, they really didn't do too much in free agency. They signed Eddie Lacy. They re-signed Deshaun Sheed, but they let a couple guys walk away, nobody of great value. At 26 here, I don't know if there's an offensive lineman that they like. They could. You never know. Seattle likes to trade out of their spots, too, and move down maybe a few picks and gain an extra third round, something like that. But again, here we're not doing any trades. It makes things too complicated. That being said, I think Seattle's defense, although they finished strong again last year, 5th in total yards against and only 292 points allowed, they love defensive players. They never think they have enough. So I think Tease Tabor, for the cornerback from Florida, I mean, this is a guy that can come in and definitely play for them day one. He's not going to start. They have some good corners, so he'll probably play nickelback. But he's 6 foot, 199 pounds. Like, a lot of these corners in this draft are big compared to the last few years. So if your nickelback is as big as this guy, they like that physical style of defense. He's definitely that type of player. He's aggressive. He really just honestly fits what they do. Seattle can find an offensive lineman in the 2nd or 3rd round somewhere, maybe even in the 4th round. I mean, you can find those guys anywhere. A talent like this only comes around so often. I think he's honestly, I mean, he screams Seattle, Arizona, Pittsburgh, like those style of defense, maybe Carolina. He's just that type of player.
All right, and at number 27, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. They have a pretty solid defense, I guess. They could use work on the defensive side, obviously, though. They need help at inside linebacker, defensive line, and quarterback. Now, the Jamal Charles era is over in Kansas City. I'm not a big Alex Smith fan at quarterback, but he is able to control the ball, not cause too many turnovers. And the rise of Tyreek Hill last season really helped change this offense from being below average to at least above average. And this is a playoff team, but they do need help on the defensive side.
Yeah, they were able to re-sign Eric Berry long-term, but they weren't able to hold on to Dontari Poe. He was a first-round pick of theirs a few years ago. They didn't really do anything else as far as free agency goes. They're a little cap-strapped, the Chiefs, so they had to be selective in what they did. Tyreek Hill was a huge addition for that offense. Some people are saying they're looking at a quarterback. I don't know. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback in the first round of this draft when they're as close as they believe they are with Alex Smith. I think they're going to give him one more year. I'm pretty sure his contract's up after 2017 anyway, so they could just let him go. I just don't see them taking a quarterback here. Defense is probably the way to go. maybe a wide receiver, I guess, to complement Tyreek Hill, because Jeremy Maclin was kind of garbage last year, so they might go that route. But I like defense here. I think Tim Williams, the defensive end out of Alabama, is a good pick. He's 6'3", 244 pounds. He's quick, runs a 4.68 40. He can get to the quarterback. He'll probably move to linebacker, maybe play D end on some obvious passing downs, kind of just put your hand on the ground and go after the quarterback. For somebody his size, he's still surprisingly good against the run. He can really set the edge in that part, but he definitely fits what the Chiefs do with their outside linebackers. They kind of play a little bit of a 3-4, maybe not exclusively, but a little more than most of the other teams in the league do outside of maybe Pittsburgh, Baltimore. You see New England doing it a little bit. So I think Williams is that hybrid player that a lot of teams are looking at, and I think he's a really good fit. I mean, his arm length is like 33 inches. This guy can slap you from across the room.
All right, let's keep moving here. Let's go to the Dallas Cowboys at number 28. Now, going into last season, if you ask me, I would say they need more help offensively. But if you look, I mean, it's really all Dak Prescott and, well, obviously Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield really helps with that good offensive line. But if Dak Prescott would have been bad last season, we might be saying they need pieces here, offensively, But really, when you have that good quarterback, it makes everyone else better around you. Now we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys as needing help defensively. You could look at Jason Witten. Jason Witten's getting old. You'd like to replace him at some point here, draft his backup at some point. But really, they need help more defensively at this point, the way that offense looked last season. So the biggest two needs defensively for the Dallas Cowboys are cornerback and defensive end. Which way do you have them going?
I think they're going to take the cornerback Tre'Davious White out of LSU. Listen, they signed Nolan Carroll, but they lost Brandon Carr, Barry Church, Morris Claiborne, Ryan Davis, and Terrell McClain, and J.J. Wilcox on the defensive side of the ball. Not all these guys were starters, but some of them were, and you can't lose that many defensive players and continue to be good. I mean, honestly, after losing Carr and Claiborne, the only good corner they have left is Byron Jones, and they just drafted him a year or two ago. White could start day one just because of their need for the position if he picks the defense up quick enough. He's not a huge guy like some of these other players. He's 5'11", 192, but that's honestly not that small. I mean, really, 5'11" to 6'2" is considered a big corner, and if you're anything bigger than that, you're a huge corner. He can play zone, he can play man. He may get beat by the bigger wide receivers a little bit until he masters his craft in press coverage, but other than that, I think he's a guy who can come in and play for them day one. The biggest question to me is what's going to happen with Ezekiel Elliott. He still has some investigation going on into domestic violence before he entered the league, and then he was also pulling some girl's shirt down in public at a St. Patrick's Day parade, and it's on video. So is he going to get suspended by the league?
It's very well possible. We'll see. I mean, that would be a huge loss.
He's an idiot. Who does that when there's all these cameras facing you? Well, who does it at all, first of all, but especially if you're him.
Believe it. Who's their backup running back out there? I don't even know. Oh, they re-signed Darren McFadden, I know.
Yeah, they let Lance Dunbar go, too.
Oh, really? I'd like to see him come to Pittsburgh, to tell you the truth. I like that guy.
He went to L.A.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Screw him. I hate him.
He's garbage.
All right, down to the final four here. The best four teams from last season. And number 29 in the draft is the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers had a nice bounce-back season last year after a mediocre season the year before, and that had a lot to do with Jordy Nelson being out and him coming back healthy last season, and he looked like a beast last year. I think he was one of the tops in the league in touchdowns, if I remember correctly.
Believe it.
But they did lose Eddie Lacy, obviously, so they're going to have to replace him at running back. And besides that, I think what they need most is help on the defensive side. And we talked about it going into last season with Clay Matthews. They didn't know if they were playing him at inside or outside. And they still have some questions at linebacker. Obviously not Clay Matthews, but they do need an edge pass rusher, and they do need some help in the secondary as well.
Yeah, they did re-sign Nick Perry. He had a quiet first few years, but then he had a big contract year. They went out on a limb, signed him. Not a huge deal, but no slack deal either. He got a decent amount of money, so they're going to hope he can replicate that production. They lost Jared Cook, replaced him with Martellus Bennett, but then they lost Micah Hyde, Dante Jones, and Julius Peppers on the defensive side of the ball. So those are pretty good players. Eddie Lacy, I mean, he didn't really play last year anyway, and they made it to the NFC Championship game, so I don't think they were really that worried about losing him. But I think they are going to be worried about finding a running back to go into that offense because they pretty much ran a patchwork running game last year. Ty Montgomery converted from wide receiver to running back and was probably the most successful guy at running back for them last year after all the injuries. Actually. Go ahead.
I was just saying he looked pretty good, actually.
Yeah, he did look good. And
they brought over that guy from Seattle, too. Can't remember his name right.
Christian Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, you got to find a running back to help out Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying they have to be first in rushing, but Green Bay was 20th in rushing last year. They got to do better. Ty Montgomery can't be the answer. He can be a compliment. I'm not saying he can't do it, but use Montgomery as a guy who's a change of pace back, and then also use him out of the slot. I mean, use him as an offensive weapon. He doesn't necessarily have to be a number one running back. I don't think he has the build for that. I think Delvin Cook, the running back out of Florida State, is a perfect fit for them. 5'10", 210, 22 bench reps, 4.49 40. I mean, other than Fournette, I think this is the best running back in the draft. So I think it's a steal for Green Bay here at pick 29. If there's a pass rusher available that they like better, I can see them going that way and then taking a running back later. I just kind of feel like they do like TJ Watt a little bit, but I read that they weren't super impressed with his pro day. They do kind of like Charles Harris also, but again, he's a hybrid guy. They don't really know where they would play him. So maybe they go pass rush, but I don't know. For me, I think Delvin Cook fits best here. They just need to run the ball.
Another running back they tried out last season was Nal Davis, and they ended up cutting him. I think he ended up going back to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 30th on the clock, actually just signed Nal Davis. They made a couple signings recently. They did their usual wait till all the big names are gone, and then sign a couple smaller names. And that's what they did. I think they made 4 signings recently. But like you mentioned when we were talking about the Miami Dolphins, they did not bring back Lawrence Timmons, which was a little bit of a surprise to me, and I'm guessing it was a little bit of a surprise to you as well. We really didn't mention that we could see him leaving. We thought they would bring him back. So they do need help at linebacker. Do you think they would think about a middle linebacker, or you think they'd still go outside linebacker if they did look at linebacker?
If there was a clear-cut middle linebacker here, I think they would do it, but I don't think there is one here at 30. At least one that they think could start day one like Ryan Shazier did. I do think they like what they see in Vince Williams, even if it's only for maybe 1 year, and they get somebody in the second or third round here and they can develop them, or maybe find somebody in the first round next year. I think they have more faith in Vince Williams than most of the fans do. So honestly, I could see him taking TJ Watt, the outside linebacker from Wisconsin. The Steelers need pass rush help. They need help in the secondary. They didn't do anything in free agency. They signed Cody Sensabaugh. He'll be a good depth signing if he makes the team. But their theory is put pressure on the quarterback, and that'll help the secondary. Watt's real big at 6'4", 252 pounds. He's a guy who can get to the quarterback quickly. He's J.J. Watt's brother, so he has good pedigree. I do think he's relatively new to football. I think he's only played football for a few years. He wasn't a lifetime footballer, or maybe he just wasn't a lifetime defensive player. But I like the pedigree. I like what they've seen out of him in Wisconsin. I think he can come in. He can be the backup to James Harrison to start the season. They could do reverse what they did last year. Last year, they let Harrison rest through the first half of the year, played him sparingly, and then they played him down the stretch. Well, this year, let Harrison start the year, play for the first half, get Watt mixed in, let him learn the defense, learn behind Harrison, and then hopefully be able to install him as the starter as the year progresses and take advantage of those young legs.
I could also see some help in the secondary coming from Senquez Golson. That's an addition right there as well. And I was talking about Nile Davis coming in at running back. They do still need help at running back. I don't think they're going to re-sign D'Angelo Williams, and I don't think Nile Davis is going to be the number 2 running back out there. So they do need help at running back as well, but I highly doubt they go first-round running back.
Agreed. I think now Davis is more of a replacement for Fitz Toussaint and also a kick returner. He averaged 27 yards per return last year. The Steelers haven't had a legit kick returner in I don't know how long.
What the hell's his name, man? My boy. What's that little dude's name?
Dree Archer.
Dree Archer. Loved him.
Dude got cut because he was garbage.
You're dead wrong. Let's move on to number 31 here, and that is the Atlanta Falcons, a team that had the Super Bowl in hand, and they could not stop passing.
They love it, man. They love to throw the ball. They have 2 beast running backs, too, and they were just like, nope, we're just going to throw the ball.
But I think they do need help defensively, correct? They had the number 1 offense pretty much last season. I think they ended up number 1, correct?
Yeah.
But defensively, they had some questions. It's not like they were horrible or anything, but they're definitely a team that needs to build defensively still if they want to remain one of the top teams in the NFL. They need help along the defensive line. They need an edge pass rusher, and they could use some help in the secondary as well. So pretty much anywhere here on the defense.
Yeah, the Falcons were just a few plays away from winning their first Super Bowl last year. The defense blew it. I mean, I know the offense wouldn't stop passing, but the defense also couldn't stop Tom Brady and company. They pretty much just drove down the field at will, especially in the second half. The Falcons were 25th in total yards allowed last year and 27th in points allowed. I understand they have this great offense that can score 30 points a game and drive down the field at will. Even when Julio Jones was hurt last year, that Falcons offense still played well. But you need to play defense to win the Super Bowl. I mean, the Patriots are showing it right now. They, like you mentioned a little bit ago, they were number 1 in points allowed defensively. So that, to me, is what a number 1 defense really is. They didn't need Tom Brady to go out and score 30 points a game because they didn't even allow 20 points per game defensively. If the Falcons can even get into the middle of the pack defensively, they would be a much more improved football team. The linebacker / defensive end, Charles Harris out of Missouri, I think he's a guy that fits the mold for the Falcons. It's 6'3", 253 pounds. He's kind of that hybrid guy. They can use him, I guess, at outside linebacker or maybe even middle linebacker. I've heard some people like him there a little more than outside linebacker. Not really sure which spot he would play, but he's a guy that Dan Quinn can use right away, but he doesn't necessarily have to be a starter right away. But if you're deploying this guy in different positions all over the field and an offense has no idea where he's coming from, then he becomes a much bigger weapon.
You got to employ him before you deploy him, man.
Please believe.
All right, Ian, last on the clock, it was the New England Patriots. They already used this pick to get their guy. Traded it to the New Orleans Saints for Brandon Cooks. So the New England Patriots may have got the best player in this draft.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, and I don't know why the Saints, and I know they wanted an extra pick or whatever, but you mean to tell me that somebody else didn't want to trade for Brandon Cooks? Like, why are you going to help New England get better? They're dominating everybody. They're signing free agents now, which they never do. Brady's only making like $15 million a year, so they have all this extra cap space. It's just not even fair. Screw you, New Orleans.
Yeah, it was a stupid move in my opinion. I mean, you're not going to get someone as good. Well, I guess you can get someone as good as Brandon Cooks, but the chances are very, very slim that you find someone on Cook's level. So I don't know what they were doing here. I know they wanted to get rid of him, but for the 32nd pick overall, it just doesn't make sense to me. But the New Orleans Saints, they do need help defensively, so I guess they had to do what they had to do. I'm just going to say they could use help pretty much anywhere on the defensive side.
Yeah, we have them taking Malik Hooker, the safety, with the 11th pick in the draft. So I want to say they're going to go defensive again, but I don't know. I like Christian McCaffrey here at 32. It sounds kind of insane, but he is exactly what they like to do with their running backs.
Is he Reggie Bush 2.0?
I mean, please believe. He had a beast year at Stanford 2 years ago, a little bit of a lesser year last year, but the team wasn't as good last year, so that hurt McCaffrey a little bit. If you want to maximize Drew Brees at the end of his career, you don't make him throw the ball downfield as much as he has to. You don't see Brady throwing the ball downfield as much as he did when he was younger. It's get the ball into the hands of his playmaker, let him move down the field. So I think with Hooker at 11, they have the ability to take an offensive player here at 32 because then they have another high pick in the second round. So I really like Christian McCaffrey here. I probably wasn't going to put him in the first round like a lot of people had him, but once the Saints traded up here to this pick at 32, I don't think they're going to be able to resist it, honestly. I think it's going to be too much temptation.
You're right. Drew Brees does need to get the ball into the hands of his playmakers. Unfortunately, they just got rid of their best playmaker.
Well, Cooks was third on their depth chart last year as far as wide receivers went. So, I mean, something was going on down there. I don't know what it is. I don't follow the Saints enough to know. But he fell out of good grace with that coaching staff. So they obviously felt like the 32nd pick was more valuable than he was.
Is Michael Floyd still in New England?
What'd you say?
Is Michael Floyd still in New England?
He's remained unsigned as of right now.
All right. I was just wondering what New England's going to have a receiver next year. I like that Malcolm Mitchell out there. Obviously, Brandon Cooks is a good receiver, and you got all those white boys as well. So they're going to be good, man.
The Patriots brought in Rex Burkhead, Stephon Gilmore, and Lawrence Guy.
And Rex Burkhead is the perfect Patriot, too, man. He's just like...
He's basically McCaffrey, and the Patriots didn't have to waste a pick on him. Maybe not as fast, but...
Rex Burkhead is like McCaffrey? Yeah. Oh, okay. You're talking about this. I was thinking of Ed McCaffrey. I was thinking white boys, Maine.
Well, Christian McCaffrey's Ed's son.
Is it?
Yeah.
Ball. But yeah, Rex Burkhead. Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good for Cincinnati when he got some playing time last season. And the way the Patriots used those little guys, man, I think Rex Burkhead can do big things in New England.
Floyd has remained unsigned. LeGarrette Blount is still unsigned. Who do you think's going to sign him?
I think Denver would be the best place for him, man. He can smoke whenever he wants then.
Please believe he can smoke the blunts.
Believe it.
Well, against Cali, you could do that too, right? And Seattle.
Yeah, you can go to Seattle. There's a lot of places you can go now.
Get it. He just can't smoke right now because the test is coming up soon.
He can go play football in Maine.
That's it. That's all we got. That's the end. Part 3, round 3. Pick 3, whatever you want to call it. It's the third part.
That's the first round. Are you going to do the second round next?
Not a chance. We're going to do another first round mock draft here in about 2 weeks, so look forward to that, fans. Any questions or comments you have, leave them in the comment section at our YouTube page. You can go to our Twitter page at bet_the_spread or at betjimthewin. Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Gotta love mock draft season. The favorite time of the year.
It's rough, man, because baseball's getting started. There's March Madness going on. Hockey's going on.
Playoffs are starting soon. There's only about 10 or 12 games left for the Pens.
Yeah, it's rough.
Believe it.